not all of us are looking for the same thing, because success means different things to different people. For a teacher, success could mean I want to make as many successful students as possible, and they're enough with that. And for a nurse like my mom, it would mean I want to make sure that as many, Alec, my voice is too loud for this, bruh. It's going to give feedback. Okay. Much better. Yeah, much better. So for other people, like a nurse, success to them is going to mean ensuring that somebody gets healed and goes back home to their families, isn't it? And for a businessman, depending on the type of company or business that they're running, success might even mean profits, or it might mean the investors are happy, or it might mean he's getting dividends, or it just means he's getting a salary from his business. Do you agree with that? And for other people, it could mean the business is scaling and it's growing and it's getting to the next level. That's the important thing. So for all of us sitting here, success is going to be defined differently. So I'm not going to assume that we are all here for the same thing. Though we're here for the same thing, we're here for different things. That makes sense? So quick background about myself. Like he said, I was actually born in Giyani, Gandlana, and I was not born in Tembisa. And I know people say, hey, what a convenient story, but it's the truth. I was born in a hut. The ambulance was late. Parents separated when I was 8 months old. Then I went to stay in Klapgat. Klapgat is on the other side of Mabopane, Pretoria, if you know where that is. Then when I was 12, I came to stay with my mother. Long and short of my story. Grew up not really in the rough part of Tembisa, but it was rough. My brother was killed when he was 16. And that introduced me to a life that I never imagined I would live, because for a brief period, it introduced me to a life of crime and alcohol. And then later, as soon as I think the wake-up call was when my mother had a stroke and she was hospitalized. And through that hospitalization, I realized that I could actually lose her as well. So I looked into changing my ways. I know a lot of people say, what was the moment where you realized your life needed to change? It was at that moment, right? So in terms of my business background, obviously I started in the property industry because my mother built back rooms and said I must go to university using the money for the back room. That's a story that everybody knows. True story, right? But I dabble in a couple of businesses just to give a background. We are in the technology business. We've got a company called Caesar Property Solutions. I wish my guys were here to actually do a presentation so that some of you who are property owners or property investors can know exactly what this system that we've built helps you with. So we haven't made it public, but we've launched it. A couple of people are using it, playing around with the system. We've built it specifically for property investors and property owners who want to scale their property investment portfolios. So it makes it easier for them to manage their portfolios and also be able to scale it because it works hand in hand with the banking system and allows you to even have the kind of financials that you are looking for you to be able to show the bank that your property investment portfolio is bankable, right? Then one of our other companies is a publishing company. It's a company that actually published this book. We publish books on behalf of other people. We've got a company called Always On Marketing. It's a digital marketing company. And then, of course, I've got my company, Quality Growth International, which is a property development and investment company. So there's a couple of companies and businesses that we are dabbling in. And as I go, I will show you the significance of actually putting yourself in a position where you take advantage of opportunities as they present themselves to you. Because a lot of people will say, stick to one business, which is good advice. Stick to one business if that's all you can do. But if you've got capacity to dabble in other businesses and build, then you should be in a position to do that, and you should do it. Does that make sense? Right? So now, I think since I've given an overview of that, I'll be brief, man, this morning, because we've got other speakers that are going to be speaking, but I'll speak briefly on property investing And then in the second session, I'll speak again. I'll combine property investing as well as entrepreneurship and how you can take that, looking at other systems within the industry and use that to manage and grow your portfolio. Is that good or good? All right. That's good. Right? So the first thing is the fact that, how many people here want to invest because they want to retire? Let's see. Show of hands. Not retire, but afford to retire even if you wanted to. Hey. My lifestyle. Yeah. So you want to afford to retire but continue doing what you love. Yes. Where is it? Okay, everybody here wants to afford to retire. That's number one, right? And then number two, how many people here are saying, I want to build a business? Because there's a difference between the two. There's a difference between somebody who's investing so that they can have a proper retirement or be financially free, and somebody who's investing because they're building a business. You want to build a business. Well, I actually forgot. We've got another division in our company where we sell property in actual fact, right? Where if you want to buy any property of any sort, you should get in touch with us. We've got a variety of stock investors and property development companies are lining up to give us their stock. And because you guys are here and you guys are property investors and you're looking for stock, who's looking for property to buy here? Okay, a lot of us are looking for property to buy. Then it provides that opportunity for you to be able to do that. And the nice thing is that if you're doing it with us, then you have the benefit also of free mentorship. Let's say free consultation. Let me put it that way. A free consultation, you come in, we speak about your needs, your property investment portfolio, what you want to achieve with your portfolio, and we guide you, right? The reason why I started off by saying or asking what each person is investing for is because it's important for you to understand your own needs and why you are doing what you're doing. Remember when I started, I said it means different things to different people, right? So, for instance, my mother, when she built back rooms, I think for her, she was just for looking for extra income because she was a single parent. But I know people that were taxi owners that went into the same industry and started building because they wanted to safeguard their cash. They've got a cash business. So with a cash business, you want to convert the cash into assets as quickly as you can, isn't it? So meaning if I'm in a position where I'm making money every day or monthly, the question that will always prevail is how quickly can I convert that money into assets, and how quickly can those assets start paying me cash flow? Which brings me to the next thing. Some people invest for cash flow. How many people are investing for cash flow? You just want cash flow from your portfolio. Okay, I see a few hands. Do you understand what cash flow is? Okay, how many people? Yes, Mama? Okay, let me just explain it. Cash flow is that income that keeps coming. So I've built a property investment portfolio, and because I've got a tenant, or I'm doing Airbnb, or I've got a business and that business is producing an income, that income is called cash flow, as long as it flows into the account. And sometimes it flows out to pay people. It flows out to manage the bond. Again, you must pay the bond. It flows out to actually look after and maintain the property portfolio. But then there are people who invest for capital gains. How many people here are investing for capital gains? Capital gains simply means I've bought a property, right? It's worth 500,000 on a basic level. And the property grows in value by 50,000 rands. That 50,000 rands is called capital gains or capital growth. Your primary amount that you purchased that property for is 500K, and it grew in value by 50,000 rands. Now, I asked how many people are here because they like investing in capital growth. Let's see, how many people like investing in capital growth? Okay, there's still some people that invest in capital growth. How many people here believe that you must buy your property cash? I changed your mind. Okay, how many people don't know if they should answer that or not? Okay, thank you for raising that. It made me ask the question because I asked how many people believe that they should buy their property cash, and you said I changed your perspective around that. Now, obviously, it depends on your personal journey and your personal relationship with debt. Say relationship with debt. Yeah, because you have to have a certain relationship with debt and understand the level of debt that you are willing to stomach. Because otherwise you won't sleep at night if you take up too much debt. But there are people who properly manage it. And for us, our portfolio from the beginning has been built around that. My mother, when she built cash. Her house was paid off. Cash, right? However, that's entry level. I saw another guy say to me, why do you talk about generational wealth? Generational wealth, yeah, the room. And I thought about it, One thing about me, when somebody throws something at me, I don't take it personal. It makes me think so that I can apply my thinking and understand it, right? So if you are the first generation person in your family right now, and you have a job, right? And from your job, you are earning a salary, or if you don't have a job, you've started a business and the business is paying you income. And we said, wealth is taking income and converting it into assets, and assets can pay you cash flow and have capital gains, isn't it? We're combining the two. So wealth is having income, converting that income into assets, and those assets must give you cash flow and also give you capital gains over a period of time. So say, for instance, you are the first generation person in your family. Maybe you are the first one to work. And you decide to go to the bank. Because most of the time when you're starting to work, you don't have any money, isn't it? Or maybe you guys' first job, you've got money to buy a property cash. You don't have any money. So you go to the bank because you are deciding at that particular moment not to purchase a property cash because you don't have the money. The bank says to you, we are in the business of financing property. As long as you've got a good credit score, you've got a pay slip, or you've got financial statements and a demonstration that your business has been around for about 2 years and is making an income, we will give you a property that you are looking to buy. Depending on what you are interested in, because there are different kinds of properties, and I'll get into that. But the easiest that people get into, that you can get into as well, is buy-to-let, buying either a home or a flat, whatever it is. Let's say, for instance, you decide, I'm buying a home because I want to have my kids live in a home. You're the first person maybe in your generation, isn't it? And then you decide that I'm going to have an architect draw up plans for this specific property to increase the value of the property. Depending on the relationship that you have with your bank, you go back to them and say, this is the future plan for this house. I want to put up units. The municipality has approved it. You must have an architect to do that for you. The municipality has approved it. As soon as they've done that, I'll have 4 units at the back. Those units will give me 2,500 each. How much is that? And perhaps your bond, if you're starting, will probably be around 700,000, isn't it? Depending on where you are buying. Now, some people want to start in the township. Some people want to start with flats, apartments. Some people want to start with high-rise buildings. It depends on your capacity. Now, James said, witness, I hear you talk about rooms. Where I come from, people don't want to stay there. Let me tell you, there's a saying in property. It says, every property has its fool. I know a guy who's renting out shacks, man. Shacks. 500 per shack. When it's 10 shacks, how much is that? Is the money, does it say I'm from a Mukuku? So every property has got somebody that's looking for it. So that's the mindset that you need to have. It doesn't matter where, obviously depending on your investment strategy, where actually you buy the property. it all depends on who you are targeting for that property. Because all of that is marketing. The market tells you what you can invest in certain areas. So somebody who goes into, let's say, Ivory Park, and it says, I want to build rooms. When we started back in the day, you knew a room in Ivory Park wouldn't be more than 1,000, isn't it? 600. It was around 600. So it's a specific market. But also, the houses back then in Ivory Park were also not expensive. Okay? So you'd find a house for 150,000, you'd find a house for 300,000, you'd find a house. So for somebody who's saying, my strategy is township investment, and my strategy is to target people that afford 600. So a 600 rand room will have no ceiling, no carpet, no toilet. Okay? He said the drain follows you to the taxi rank. The drain has to follow him to the taxi rank. He's paid 600. And when you are designing it for him, you're designing it specifically for that market. This person can afford. Then you say, okay, other markets will say, no, I'm not going to stay there because I want something that has a kitchenette, something that has a bathroom, and something where I'll be able to still go to the taxis, but I want it clean. Same area, same different type of client. You could develop something where you are charging 3,000. So I just thought I could clarify that part. Every property has got somebody that's looking for it. My job and your job is to actually figure out who's the person that's looking for it. And it tells you the area where you are going. You already know who the person that you are looking for is. When we started developing old white suburbs, right, we'd look at the yard. Perhaps it goes back to what I was saying, that you'll do your plans and you go back to the bank. ABSA gives you what they call future value use. So what that means by future value use, hey, I'm advertising them. But what that means is you speak to your banker or home loans department and say, this is what the property is going to look like after I'm done developing it. So that's future value, isn't it? On a basic personal level for someone who earns money through a payslip or the company he owns pays him a salary. Then he goes to them and says, this is what it's going to look like when I'm done. Send someone to come and evaluate based on the future value. Then they do a desktop evaluation of properties that are of the same square meters. Remember, now maybe your square meters, let's say, might be 70 square meters, right? After developing the units at the back, there's something we call total square meterage. So total square meterage tells you what properties of that same square meters in the area are worth. Then they finance based on that. Because it's not a commercial property, they cannot finance you on future income. But it's a consideration because now the banks are looking into financing people to get into actually property investing, as long as the units are not more than 10. So as soon as it's more than 10, they pass it on to commercial. And to qualify on the commercial side is a bit stringent because they want a lot of things. They want the property to be rezoned, which goes back to township. How many people here own properties in the township? Township. Is it easy to get the zoning? Most, I can tell you now, even the people who raise their hands, their properties are not zoned correctly. I don't have to guess. I'm not even guessing. Is it zoned correctly, Malwan? You're laughing. I see you are laughing. Why? Because regulation doesn't allow you to do certain things in the township. How many people knew that? You can buy a property hoping to do a skyscraper. Have you ever seen a skyscraper in the township? Okay, 5 floors. Why is that? Have you ever thought about that? It's because regulation doesn't allow. Regulation doesn't allow. In fact, it's the old apartheid spatial planning regulation. Spatial planning is just town planning, in other words. So with town planning, there are areas where if you read the town planning scheme, there's something called the town planning scheme. Before you buy into an area, you take the town planning scheme, read it, and see what's allowed in the area and what's not allowed. And someone might be asking, where do I get the town planning scheme? You go to the nearest municipality of where you're wanting or looking to buy a property. You check, it will tell you area by area. Area B, this is what's allowed. Area C, this is what's allowed. That informs now your strategy if it forms part of being in that community that you're looking to do. So you want to do, let's say, I was saying when we moved now to the old white suburbs, we said we are going to develop in areas that allow us to rezone. To rezone, meaning if we buy a property and it's got a big yard, we must do what we call parking allocation. In the township, you don't have parking allocation. You can have 15 rooms. They're illegal, by the way. You can have 15 rooms, but you don't have parking allocation. Right? And then what does the town planning scheme say around the township? 60 hectares, 60 units per hectare. Which means 6 units per 1,000 square meters. Most properties in the township are 300 square meters. But on that 300 square meters, you have 15 units. Is that true or true? So, but what a lot of people then have done is the way they develop the units that they have in the township is to design that as if it's a house. And then within that, they put the units. The municipality approves, but they're approving a house. So when the bank, now you want to sell the property to the next person, you want to sell it and you want the person to get the bank to finance them. It's not difficult because they send an evaluator and the evaluator says, how many units are here? How many people are staying here? And that's why they send it to commercial. When it gets to commercial, what does commercial say? Zoning. Do you have zoning? Then they can't finance it. That's some of the pitfalls that we get into. Which means now, for you to be able to sell that property, you need a cash buyer. I'm telling you something I've actually been in. When we started, our strategy was cash flow. So it wasn't really capital gains because we knew with the units we are developing in the townships, we were not going to have that much capital gains anyway because the units were not commercial properties. It was still going to be evaluated according to the properties in the area. So they look at the most expensive property in the area with the same amount of square meterage and the same amount of description. Then they say, if that one sold for $1 million, then the most expensive here can be $1 million. Now, backtracking a bit. When one finds themselves in those pitfalls, the mistake they make is holding on to the property. But what saves you is understanding what your strategy is. The fact that everybody is investing in township property doesn't necessarily mean we must all invest in township property. With me, I get it was by default now. Someone just decided to build rooms and then throw me in it and say, manage them. But as time goes on, you realize actually this strategy is limited when you want cash now. So we talk about refinancing. Let me quickly explain refinancing as well. We talk about refinancing in the property industry. Okay? So refinancing is, remember when we talked about capital gains or capital growth not so long ago? That thing is called equity. You buy the property for 700K. Now it's worth 900K because you did some development or because the area has grown a bit in value, right? Based on market demands. That 200K or that extra money above what you've paid for the property is what we call equity or capital gains, but equity is the correct word for it. You can go to the bank, back to them and say, I want to do what they call an equity release or refinancing. Refinancing is they send an evaluator, they look at the value of the property, and then they say, we can now refinance you the extra 200,000 rands because your property has grown up in value by 200,000. However, the challenge there becomes if you do not have the right regulations in place, the property is not properly approved, the plans are not approved, and the zoning is not there, you don't benefit from capital gains or refinancing. And refinancing is nice because if you want to deposit another property, you can refinance one so that you are able to deposit the other one. I know you people, you go refinance and go buy Gucci, ne? Like I bought my Gucci cash. But the point I'm making is, you want to put yourself in a position where you understand exactly what you are doing so that you don't get surprised later and say, I attended a property seminar, they said I must buy property and any property will make me money. Because it must be two-pronged, that strategy. In value, it must grow because increased value is increased money. Do you agree there? Increased value is increased money. That's why I hear people saying your primary home is not an asset, but it increases in value. How is it not an asset? Does it increase in value or does it not? I just said back in the day, properties in Ivory were like 150, 100,000. Are they still 100,000? Can you get a property for 100,000 in Ivory now? $1 million. And there's a drain passing. Or again, they can't sell there. Why? Rezoning, all those issues. So it needs somebody who's willing to pay cash. So meaning, understand what you are investing in. That's the most important thing. Understanding what you're investing in and what is allowed in that area. I've already shared the town planning scheme matter with you guys. Yeah, you go speak to a town planner and then you say, Chief, what is the spatial planning? He can tell you if there'll be a big road that's going to cut across there and affect your property. So you want to be thinking ahead when it comes to that, right? And then there will be, yes, sir. Yes. Yeah. That's a good question. That's a good question. Airbnb, the BNB story, right? Yes and no. Why do I say yes and no? Sometimes when you build, because you don't understand what the regulations are, you will contravene it again. You understand? So you went ahead, you've built, maybe you've contravened the regulation. They are not going to approve something that contravenes the regulation. Unless you pay a bribe, of course. It's a different story. No, I'm being straightforward. I get it, South Africa. Unless you go and pay a bribe, somebody takes the fall for it. But in a normal working system, it's always better before you build. You check what the regulation is and you do the rezoning. Why? You don't waste your money. Let me tell you something quickly about the rezoning part. I see you guys looking at me. Time is gone. I was given 30 minutes in the first session. With for instance, a guest house, B&B, hotel, it's another asset class within the property industry, isn't it? Say, for instance, you've bought that house and it's got 1,000 square meters in it, and you've gotten the town planner, you've sat down with the town planner and the architect, and you are now rezoning this thing into a guest house, perhaps that also has a small conference facility. The value of that property is going to go up without you having started to do the guest house. Why does the value of the property go up? It goes up because the rights over the property have been changed. It's no longer just a residential one normal property. It now operates as a guest house. Now, why would you start by building, spending money, when you can just increase the value of the property without building? Did you hear what I just said? If getting proper regulation and getting proper zoning increases the value of the property, why would you want to start building if building actually erodes the value of the property? Unless your mindset is different. Your mindset is maybe perhaps focused on cash flow. Because people who want cash flow, they don't care sometimes about zoning. When we were building in the township, we didn't care. We wanted cash flow. Like, where can we get the next 1,000? Where can we get the next 2,000? You understand? So the focus was on developing, creating so that we can get a lot of these 2,000s, 3,000s, 1,000s, 4,000s. That was the focus. However, as soon as we realized that now we need to become sophisticated investors, everybody says sophisticated. You can't stay in the same place forever, isn't it? You must elevate, right? And to elevate, meaning the level at which you do things must change. Your mindset around how you do things must change. And property is not a get-rich-quick scheme. Although it's a get-rich-definitely scheme. But it's not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's a long-term, this thing. You understand? So when you're doing it quickly as if you're dying tomorrow, what's your problem? Like, you want the money now. Like, and you know that's the problem, Mdaka, sometimes. I spent 40 years making habits, and I expect those habits to go within a month. Is it possible? So same in our investment journeys. You can't want to milk one property and say, I'm going to be rich with one. You've never bought a property. Your grandfather never bought a property. Your great-grandfather. When do you want to be rich with one? There must be a systematic plan in terms of long-term that allows you to prosper. And it's okay if other people are saying they're doing amazing and they're buying Porsches. It means they spent the time learning. It means, what are we supposed to do? Spend the time learning. And the learning is in the doing. It's your first time doing something. Would you want to do it extravagantly? You want to take it step by step. Okay, you've built one room. You have a model. Or you've done a house. Like, for instance, you spoke B&B, right? One of the ways you can do B&B without contravening regulations is to just put your property on Airbnb, test your market. Run it as a B&B, but on Airbnb. I get the laws around that do not stop you from doing it. While waiting for the zoning, you put it up on Airbnb. And it goes for those people that have bought maybe a flat. It's a buy-to-let. And the flat is it's not generating money because you are paying a bond and you are paying municipality and you are paying rates, you are paying levies, right? And maintenance. The money that you are getting from the rental is lower than the money that you are getting, that you are paying for costs, right? However, you can say, what is the location of this property? How can I reuse it when it comes to positioning it as an Airbnb property? Even if it means I'm charging 400 per night. If your rental is 6,000, you're charging 400 per night. 400 times 10 is 4,000. Another 10 days, 8,000. Another 10 days, 12,000. That's better than 6. So you have to look around and say, what is the best way for me to be able to do this? And then you say, okay, apart from residential property, there's commercial property. There's commercial property. And within commercial property, there are different kinds of commercial property. Like, for instance, if you've got a shop, like I have a shop, I used to have a spaza shop. I'm renting it out now to my friend. You know my friend? It's got a commercial element, but it's not zoned commercial. Like, one of the zoning thing is very serious. So anything that you want to develop, ask yourself if the zoning is going to be approved, yes or no, before you put your money there. And in fact, sometimes it's important to take professionals with you. Take a town planner with you and say, I want to put an offer on this property. What do you think we can do with it? Because sometimes you don't know what you don't know. But when you have the right people around you, professionals, not only people that say, I've done property, I might have done property, but there are certain things within property that I myself don't understand. So before even I do a development, I'll get a quantity surveyor. I heard someone says they want to be a quantity surveyor here. The QS will do all the calculations for me and say, this is how much this thing will cost. But can the QS do a calculation without the design, without the architect? It's not possible. So it's a step-by-step process when it comes to property investing. Okay, so perhaps lastly, because I don't want to take up too much time for now. Perhaps lastly, the main thing that you have to look at is which kind of property actually works for you. Works for you in terms of your capacity to manage it. You can't buy your first property in Cape Town, but you stay in Joburg. How are you going to manage it? How are you going to learn? Because with investing, the pudding, or I get about the proof is in the pudding, but the proof is in the doing. You have to be doing this thing on a daily basis so that you understand it. Is a tenant ever dodged you? Anyone? Am I the only one?
They change it.
So, but that experience teaches you. Sometimes when you see a guy for the first time, you're like, he won't pay me this one. It teaches you now to understand people because you are dealing with people on a daily basis. But if you hand over, because I've seen people, they buy their first property, they hand it over to a manager to manage it. That's good and that's bad. It's good because the manager will do probably a better job than you can and do the collections for you. But it's bad because then you don't understand what's going on. And somebody comes and says, I've bought this property, it's not working. And you're like, okay, let me check your portfolio. Where did you buy this property? You check, you're like, how many units are in this complex? 1,000. Chief, how do you expect to compete with 999 people for a tenant? There are 1,000 units, you are buying one. Now let's talk marketing. Is that a proper deal? You are competing with 999 people. You must have that in mind when you are looking for a tenant. And some developers, you know what they do? They sell the units to investors in bulk. So a guy will come and say, I don't like developing, right? There are people who don't like developing. And they say, I don't like developing, but I made money in my technology company. I'm going to buy 100 units. He bought 100. You bought one. You're all looking for the same tenant. He's got 5 units on the same block as you. You say rent is 6,000. He says 5.5. And then you say rent is 5.5. Then he's like, okay, I'm willing to lose money on 1 unit. 1 month free rental. Well, now you can't because you've got a bond to pay. So all of that actually happens in different kinds of businesses, even within the industries that are prevalent and people are operating. You're starting now, you want to sell one product as a business. You want to compete, let's say, with a Coca-Cola and they've got 100 products. You are selling water. Okay. Have you seen sometimes Bonaqua dropping to 5 rands? Why do you think that is? They can afford to drop it to 5. Can you afford to drop to 5 rands? That's the game. So even within the property industry, all those principles of supply and demand, market research, types of customers, they exist.